Hey everyone, decided to pop back on here and shoot another video really quickly before all things weekend occur. And this one's gonna be more lighthearted, kind of funny but sad at the same time. I know my initial video was more in depth, but that was just to kind of establish what my channel is going to be about. And we will definitely still be talking a lot more about narcissism, non physical abuse, divorce, being in your 40s, relationships, and beyond. And today, part of what I'm going to talk about is online dating. And doing that in your 40s, it's such a mixed bag. There are great things that come out of it, and then there are also lots of things you have to, shall we say, sift through. So I'm just going to be sharing the story that I had that I felt like was the worst, yet the most entertaining. So let's get into it. So online dating, I have used several apps in the past. This particular story comes from Match.com. However, it could come from any of the apps because I'm sure, as many of you are finding out, if you're online dating, there's repeat customers. Some that you see some of the same faces, no matter what app you're on, honestly. They all have their positives and negatives. So this was Match.com, which in general is pretty basic, pretty old school. Probably not the biggest one for red flags. So I was on the app and I had been messaging this guy who was very local, which was exciting because a lot of the times, I don't know if this is common, but a lot of the times I'd get matches that were mostly like an hour and beyond. I'd be lucky if it was somebody who lived under an hour from my area that I was interested in. So this person was like 5 minutes away. I was like, oh, that's amazing. So we were chatting for a while one night, and a little bit about this guy. He was around the same age as me, also in his 40s, I think maybe like a year or two apart. So like great, because I was always looking for somebody who was, like between 5 years younger or 5 years older, give or take. And he came across as like really straightforward. Like he was okay, looking attractive wise. And I mentioned in my first video, that's not really a big factor for me anyways. I'm open to like a wide variety of looks, I guess, as long as you at least somewhat take care of yourself. And health is important because, a certain level of health and fitness and hygiene, those things are important for sure. So yeah, I thought he was a, decent looking guy and loved that he was local. He had also been married once, like myself. And, he had one son who I think was 10 or 11 and, shared custody of him. Sounded like they had a pretty good relationship. I look for that, as a mom myself, looking for somebody who, is a good dad and is involved in the kid's life. Again, there are exceptions to everything. But anyways, moving forward. Everything seemed great, right? That's what you think at first. So actually, while we were on the app chatting, he had asked me one night, he's like, hey, do you just want to move this to a phone call? I'm like, great, because I'll get into it, but just a phone call or a video call can like weed out so much that you can't get over text. You can only get so much over text. And I'm one who tends to want to meet sooner rather than later, casually, because you don't want to like overinvest in a first date, but I'd rather get to know somebody in person versus all this back and forth only to realize, there's no chemistry or it's not a match, because in person it's a different feel. So anyway, so we exchanged numbers and we talked maybe like 3 or 4 times during the week before we decided to go on a date. And in general, the conversations seemed pretty normal. We talked about, being a parent, what we were looking for in a partner. We were both like dating with intention. So we both definitely wanted something that was had long-term potential, and we're hoping for that. So great, checking a lot of boxes, right? So I'm going to give you some information that at the time, to me anyways, didn't set off alarm bells, but it all kind of comes back in the end. So on the phone, there were a couple things that he said that, again, I didn't give much attention at the time, but he said, hey, I just want to let you know that when I'm out, I never drink like more than 1 to 2 drinks. Like, I'm very responsible. When I go out, I make sure that, I don't put myself or anyone else at risk for driving intoxicated and all that. And I was like, okay, well, nobody's ever told me that before, but that's a good thing. Of course. Why wouldn't I want you having more than a couple drinks? No big deal. I'm the same way. I'm not a big drinker. And if I do, it's just socially, right? Fine. So that was something that kind of came back later from our phone calls. But anyway, everything at the time seemed fine. And we decided to meet at a restaurant for our first date. That was pretty much right down the street from me. So again, so pumped. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like this close by. This works out. This is going to be amazing. So we met at this restaurant that we were both familiar with. We've gone to before and we both liked. And the date itself, it was like very easy. Nothing stood out to me really, but again, I will share some pieces of our conversation that seemed like it was a nothing thing, but became a thing. So we both ordered dinner, and like he said, he had 1 drink. We talked about, again, more of the topics we already discussed, but also we grew up in the same area. So we talked about like bars that we went to, restaurants, common places that we had experienced, which again was really nice. I'm like, oh, we already have this baseline of things we can pull from for common interests. So that was great. And then at the end of so during the date, so what I was going to point out is he had asked me what my favorite drinks were, alcoholic and non-alcoholic. And I said, well, I like a red wine, like a Cabernet is probably my favorite. And then as far as non-alcoholic drinks go, I really like Diet Coke. And he said, oh yeah. He's like, well, that's awesome. He's like, he mentioned some beer that he liked, and then that he liked regular Coke. And I'm like, okay, just as a normal top of what are our interests conversation. Another thing he discussed that, again, seemed very typical was that his parents were retired and they lived in Florida. And that one of his favorite things to do was to visit them with his son. So they took like semi-frequent trips, I think like maybe a couple times, 2 to 3 times a year to go visit his parents. Totally normal. Like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice perk to go somewhere warm. Because I'm from the Midwest. We're both from the Midwest. So I'm like, oh, that's nice, And then at the end of the date, he walked me to my car. Again, very nice. Gave me just a peck on the lip. So we did have like a really small little peck kiss. And so there wasn't something where I'm like, ooh, do I need to evaluate the chemistry through a kiss? It wasn't possible because it was just a little peck, and I thought it was like respectful, and everything seemed fine. One thing I will say is in that moment, there's something about him, looking at him in the parking lot, where I was like, I'm just not sure if I'm attracted to this guy. Like, I can't put my finger on it. Like, there wasn't, again, he was a decent looking guy. He seemed like he was slim build, decent, like good features and stuff, but there was like something there, and I couldn't tell if it was like an energy thing or like, what it was, but I'm just like, something just feels off there. Couldn't figure it out. Oh, yes. One more thing that came up during the date that will come back. So he had mentioned to me while we were on the date that he's like, look, I just want to be exclusive because I only date one person at a time. And I kind of operate that way too. And I wouldn't say that like after one date I was certain that with him anyways I wanted to do that. But as long as I could see like a second date or further dates, that's fine with me because I'd rather operate that way. I'm not somebody who likes to go date a bunch of people at once. That's not me. So I'm like, that's fine. That's cool. But I said, I want to let you know because the following night after our date, there was someone who I had gone on a couple of dates with, and we ended up just being friends. And he had extra tickets to like a play performance that night. So he had reached out to me to say, hey, do you want to go join me for this play performance? And I said, sure. So I let this guy know that I was on this date with. I said, I just want to let you know I'm going to go to this play performance with somebody who I went on a couple of dates with, but we just go as friends. Is that something that bothers you? Because if it does, I can cancel it. Like wasn't a big deal. Like if I saw potential with this guy, I have no problem like cutting that off if that's something that would bother him, especially, right off the bat. And he's like, no. He's like, I totally trust you. It's one date. I don't know how you could totally trust me, but I would trustworthy looking face, I guess. Anyway, so I was like, okay, as long as you're sure about that, then I'll let you know, when we can go out again. So that was that. Again, in my mind, I'm like, good date. Seems like a good person. I would go out with him again. I just have to kind of figure out this attraction thing, which I didn't know. So the following night, I think it was a Friday, as planned, I went out to this play performance with this guy, just as friends. Nothing happened. Went to the play, watched the performance. It was maybe like 10 o'clock or something that night. And I get back to my car and turn on my phone because I either had it on silent or like I disabled my messages or whatever because I'm in the middle of watching a play. And there's text from this guy. Like a couple missed texts. And one of them said, hey, I am so worried that I'm going to lose you. Like, I'm so panicked right now. I'm so worried I'm going to lose you tonight. And then I texted him back saying like, hey, the play's over. Nothing happened, just like I told you. This is a friend at this point, and you have nothing to worry about. Like, don't worry about it. Like, chill out a little bit. So, he replied to me, well, okay, well, I was really worried I was going to wake up tomorrow morning, that I had lost you. And he's like, I'm just afraid you're not as wild as I am. So in my head, I'm like, wild as you are. I'm like, oh, we're talking like sexually? Is that where we're going with this? Because that's what somebody would assume if you're getting that kind of a text. Like, I don't think you're as wild as I am. Okay. Well, we didn't talk about anything sexually before, which to me is always a green flag. I mean, I don't want to be talking about that before I meet up with somebody. That's maybe for later topics. But for him, we never broached that topic. So I'm like, you know what? I have an hour to get home from where this play performance is, or about an hour. So I'm just going to call this guy up and see what the heck he's talking about. So I call him up and I'm like, hey, like, what did you mean about this? Like, I'm not wild. You don't think I'm as wild as you are. Like, you're talking like sexually, or like, what are you talking about? Because you don't know me in that space, so it could be anything. And he kind of didn't answer the question and just started going off on these crazy tangents. That's where this story gets wild, trust me. So weird. So so he starts talking about like not answering the question, but I get my answer later, trust me. He doesn't answer the question, but he starts talking about like how excited his parents are to meet me and that they approve of me. He's like, "Oh, I just want to let you know, my parents approve of you." And I'm like, well, we've had one date and we've talked like a couple times before that date. What? Who? What? I'm like, how is that even possible? He's like, "Oh, well, I sent your picture and they said like how beautiful you were and they approve." Okay. Then he says, "Oh, by the way, my mom is super excited to meet you when you come to Florida." And it was Diet Coke and Cabernet that you liked, right? Right? That's what it was, right? Because she stocked up on that for you. So she's all stocked. Um, so in my head, I'm like, this is so not happening in the future. This is like red flag city. Like, no, your mom has stocked up on my favorite drinks after one date, and I have never talked to her. There was no talk about Florida visits. There was no talk about future plans. Like, okay, dude, no. Um, but I'm still driving home, so I'm like, all right, well, let's see what else happens in this conversation. He's still going anyways. There's no way to cut him off. So he tells me that. And then he says, oh, like, so what time do you usually like wake up in the morning? And I said, well, it all depends. If like it's a weekend where I have my kids, then I might be up earlier or for work, obviously. Depends on what I have going on during the day. Like sometimes I'll sleep in, but most of the times I'm up pretty early. And he goes, oh, well, that would not be the case if you were sleeping over at my place. I was like, again, thinking he's talking something in like the sexual space. And I'm like, okay, buddy, I like slow down. Like, you can't make these assumptions because we're not there yet. And nor will we ever be. But no, that's not. That would have been actually a creepy but normal, right? Creepy but normal if he was going there. No, he goes, well, after I drink a case of beer, and you have 2 bottles of your Cabernet, like your wine, like 1 or 2 bottles, then we're just gonna have to like sleep in. Like we're gonna be just exhausted. Like the next day, we're just gonna, we're gonna have to sleep in and really rest up from all that drinking. Oh, what? No, sir. Nowhere in these discussions did I sign up to have a bottle or two of wine a night. I do not do such things. No, absolutely not. And additionally, did you say a case of like a 12 pack? A 6-pack, a 12 pack? He's like, yeah, a 12 pack. And I'm like, so you drink a 12 pack of beer? Like you could do that? First of all, let's start there. You could do that? And he's like, oh yeah, easily. And I was like, every night? And he's like, well, I don't have to work. Yeah. Okay. So then, ding, 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 it dawns on me when this man first pointed out he only drinks 1 or 2 beers or has 1 or 2 drinks when he goes out. When he goes out. When he's at home, it's a different story. And this is where the wildness factor comes in. And if that's what we're talking about, no, I am not that wild. No, you're right. You are correct. He didn't say that, but okay. Stay till the end because it gets weirder, okay? It's only a few more minutes of the story, but it gets weirder. Oh my gosh. So after that, we're still talking. There's still more madness talk about how he wants to retire with me. He's close to retirement. So like, I'm going to be the person he retires with, all this long-term craziness. I pull up to my house because I'm home. And I tell him, this is because I want to get off this call anyway. It's entertaining, but also no. So I get to my house and I'm like, hey, I'm really tired. I didn't have a lot to eat that night. I don't think I had dinner that night. So I'm like, I'm really hungry and tired. So I'm going to eat something and then just go to bed. And he's like, oh, good, because, sorry. He goes, it's time for my milk. It's time for your milk? Yeah, it's time for his milk. And I said, what are you talking about? It's time for your milk. And he said, oh, well, every night before I go to bed, and apparently this is after his case of beer, every night before he goes to bed, he's like, every night I drink so much milk. So much milk. Like more milk than you can ever believe, you could ever imagine. Like he's like, just so much milk. I'm like, okay. And then he says, do you know those like really large packs of like Oreos? You know, not the regular Oreos, but you know, the double stuffed ones. I'm like, sure, I know double stuffed Oreos. Yeah, thank you. He goes, well, every night before I go to bed, guess with his milk, he's like, I have almost like the whole pack of those. He's like, I eat so many of those Oreos, like more than you could ever imagine, like more than you could ever think was possible. And then, you know, those Reese's cups, like the peanut butter cups? Yeah, I know those cups. I have so many of those Reese's cups. Is like, I just, more than you can ever think possible. More than you can ever imagine. So, my man was not only a secret binge drinker, moves way too fast and has way too many assumptions when trying to move into a relationship at a very, very scary pace. But also, he's a binge drinker of all things and a binge eater. And this is what my intuition, my gut was telling me was off in the parking lot when he went to kiss me. And I was like, something attractive wise, just, I don't know what it is. So because he was a skinny guy, I don't know how, slim guy. But I think it was something like in his skin or the way he presented or something energetically where like I picked up on like, he looks like I should be attracted to him, but I'm not. My kids have heard this story. I have teenage kids. And we can no longer bring up or shop for Oreos without dying. Oh, there's all types out there. There's all types. But there are some really great, good, positive stories too. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sure you've experienced some oddities as well. Feel free to leave that in the comments if you'd like. Otherwise, have a fantastic weekend, and hopefully I cheered you up. Bye.